All right. Lisa, Aiden, yeah.
Yep.
All right. Everyone, welcome to our session tonight. I'm Carly Hoffman. I'm the Assistant Director of the MFA program at JTS, and this is just really exciting that we're here to talk about admissions and your applications and all things related to our MFA program. So our itinerary is that we'll have our dean, Lisa Springer, share a little bit about the inception of the program, just structural things like what is a low-res MFA. And then we'll have four of our current students from our first cohort ever, so exciting, share their perspectives and just different aspects of their experience in the MFA program so far. Um, and then I will share with you a little bit about how to apply, the materials that you'll need for your application, and we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. So as we go along, if there are questions that come up, you can put them in the chat. And we have our Director of Administration, Aiden, here, who will be, hi, Aiden, who will be in that chat answering questions. And also, we can have questions answered by our current students and by myself. So, without further ado, I give the mic to Lisa.
Hi, everybody. It's lovely to be here with you. So I just want to give you a brief history of the program. So it began with Jonathan Safran Foer came to JTS to speak with the Chancellor Shuley Schwartz to bounce some ideas around with him. Shortly thereafter, I came to JTS, and Jonathan and I started meeting regularly to imagine we imagined this program. And it, was going and coming, and maybe, just like many ideas, once they're established, you think, of course, it was inevitable, but it wasn't, in fact, at all inevitable. We went through the process, Aiden and I, of applying to the state, getting approval from the state, which we got last fall. And then Edgar Carrot came on as director in February, a year ago, which is amazing. A lot has happened in a year. And brought his incredible energy, vision, and amazing storytelling to the table. Our first cohort, four members of which are here, came when we launched in September. And then just briefly, a low residency program. We meet for 10 intensive, unbelievable days together, and then people work with mentors for the rest of the semester. Um, then we have a complicated structure with creative advisors, with mentors, with teachers. I'm not going to go into all that, but those questions may come up later. I think mostly the students can speak really much more eloquently than I. But it just on my end, it's been an incredibly exciting venture, full of surprises and great energy and amazing writing and storytelling. Okay, Carly, back to you.
Great. So I believe Alberta is we're going in that order, and I think you'll just introduce yourself and then we'll go along that way.
Okay, sounds good. Hi, my name is Alberta Nassi. I live in Sacramento, California, and you'll excuse the sunlight streaming in because I know so many of you are in cold, freezing climates, which I got a taste of this winter residency. Um, I write memoir, mostly personal essay to be exact. I'm working on a full-length memoir or memoir and essays. And for the admissions process, I submitted a few of these essays, both published and unpublished. Um, I'm really delighted to talk about the mentoring process, which is really the cornerstone of the program. And I'm not surprised I was asked to do this because I've been so verbal about my delight with how it has gone. And I'll try not to get emotional because there is so much humanity in this program. And to give you context, I've spent a good part of my adult life in higher education, both inside the classroom and in front of the classroom. And I've never encountered something quite like this program. And my day job is actually as a psychologist. So you would think as a clinical psychologist that there would be this level of sensitivity, but It's very unusual in an academic setting. I have been very fortunate to work with Rachel Kadish. And I don't know how many of you know her work. Probably her most famous historical novel is The Weight of Ink, which won the National Jewish Book Award. And Rachel has actually written and published personal essays, but she's not written a memoir. And it has not mattered whatsoever because my goal is actually to produce a memoir that would read like a novel. Um, I have to say that this experience with her has way exceeded my expectations. Um, a lot of times people who are gifted and famous don't necessarily make the best teachers, but sometimes the alchemy is just right, and that is the case here. And I think it's not only my experience of her as a mentee, but she also, because she is now part of the core faculty, has workshopped many of the students in my cohort. And I think the experience has been universally positive. I thought what I might do is just read to you briefly from my final reflections of the fall semester. You're asked to do that. There's a lot of checking in, which I think also tells you something that this administration really wants to know what the students' experience is like, positive and negative. So this is what I wrote. I treasure my work with Rachel. She is smart, competent, empathic, comprehensive in her commentary, and not withholding in her praise. With her midwifery, I trust I can do the work and chart the unknown. While I'm less plagued by self doubt, I'm not free of it, but I can stay the course. Most importantly, I'm not alone. I can't imagine a better mentor for me, especially at this stage of development as a writer. Edgar, who, if you have the good fortune to get to know him, has a way of putting things. And he said, it's in regard to my experience, it's like being enveloped in Cynthia Ozick's shawl. And I don't know how many of you know the short story by Cynthia Ozick, The Shawl, but it's a very poignant story about a young woman in a Nazi concentration camp who uses a tattered cloth to cover her infant to conceal the child from the awareness of the Nazi officials. And that is an experience of truly being held. And it was a lovely way to capture what it feels like. So I'll be happy to respond to any questions, but I'll turn it back to Carly for now.
Great. Yael is next, and she'll be talking about the multidisciplinary approach. Thank you so much, Alberta. That was really moving.
Yes.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. I'm Yael. I'm on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, so very close to JTS. And I write both screenplays, and fiction. So when I applied, I submitted an excerpt from my screenplay, and a chapter from a novel I'm working on. And I'll just mention that, like, the screenplay I felt really great about. The novel, I was like, oh, I don't know if this is any good. No one's read it. But it felt like very truthful to the writing I wanted to do in the program, and so I submitted it. So I would say, like, follow the truth of what you're doing. Don't worry if it's like extra polished. Like, I think sometimes something that's a little bit more raw might be the way to go. But so yeah, so for me, the multidisciplinary approach was really one of the biggest draws of the program. I think one of the reasons I had never pursued an MFA earlier was that I didn't really know where I fit. I write fiction, but I never really felt like I was a fiction writer. I didn't want to get an MFA in screenwriting for a whole other different reason that's not really relevant to this conversation, but feel free to chat with anyone after if they want. Um, so I was really excited when this program was launched and to see those opportunities. And I think especially because wherever you are in your writing career, if it's early, middle, later, like it's very easy to feel pigeonholed and to feel like you're doing one type of thing and that's what people expect from you. So I really wanted this space where I could just kind of like take those labels off of myself, stop thinking about them and stop worrying, am I a screenwriter? Am I a novelist? What am I? Like those, I don't really ask myself those questions in the program, which is just really freeing. And I would say that, the workshop experience is really spectacular when everybody is coming in from such different places with such different styles and genres and sensibilities. And it makes just the workshop so dynamic and fun, and every day is different. And you get so much out of them, whether it's a genre that you're working really closely in or something completely unrelated. I still think about a workshop we did in the fall for someone in our cohort who was working on a graphic novel. And we had all these conversations about what it means to use space and to leave space. And that's something that absolutely applies to screenwriting, prose, whatever you're writing. So there's always these nuggets and these like really, really great takeaways that you wouldn't get if you were in a workshop that was just for the genre that you're working most in. And I would say like I think everybody uses the multidisciplinary lens a different way. So for me, it was very like, I know I want to do fiction, I know I want to do screenwriting, and I'm kind of like toggling back and forth. In the fall, I workshop fiction, and then I spent the semester working on a screenplay with Rama Burstein, who's amazing. And then I wanted to flip it, so I workshopped that screenplay, and now I'm working on fiction with Topher Mervis, who's also amazing. So it's very individualized. You can really do what you make of it. And so for other people, it's like not at all like multidisciplinary on the surface. They're like, I know I want to work on my memoir. I know I want to work on poetry, and that's where they're going. Where others are like more in discovery. They're like, I have this one story. Thinking of Sam who's on this call, and like, I don't really know what the best vehicle is for it yet. And I'm gonna like explore different genres to figure it out. So there's so much room for play and for exploration, which is so important, I think, in an MFA program. I didn't even like know how much I wanted it until I was doing that. Just really like freeing yourself of those constraints of genre. And I'll also just add that I feel like it really is part of what makes our community so special, and it makes the cohort feel so connected because everyone is so on their own path. Our end goals don't look alike. Like everybody is really here for a different purpose and for something else. And so like I think we'd all be very supportive and cheer each other on, even if we were all doing the same thing. But like the fact that like we all have such different lenses and views and end goals, like we're really able to support each other. We're really able to lean on each other. Like it's so nice how like so often someone from the cohort will text me after they saw a movie that made me think of like their screenplay, or like I'll text someone like a memoir that made me think of their work. And like there's like no sense of competition or one-upmanship. Like everybody really feels like we're just like on like these like 18 parallel paths that are coexisting beautifully. And that's very much like a top down from the leadership of the team that we all feel that. But I think that's just, Alberta said exceeds expectations. And like, I was quite nervous to do this. I was like the inaugural cohort, and I'm like, is this going to be as good as it sounds? And it really has exceeded my expectations in so many ways. And I just really think that whether you're coming in wanting to work in multiple genres, if you don't know what genre you really feel most connected to, or if you know, like, I'm only here to write like short fiction or poetry, whatever it is, you're going to benefit from that multidisciplinary experience. And yeah, I'm excited to talk further tonight.
Great. Oh, thank you so much, Yael. This is just so exciting to hear from all of you. And Eric is next, and Eric will talk about the residency.
Hi, I'm Eric Rasmussen. I grew up and lived most of my life in New York City, but now I live in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I'm joining right now from Copenhagen, Denmark, where it's 1 in the morning. But I stayed up to this time because I'm very excited to talk about the residency. Um, so, uh, the residency, as Dean Springer mentioned, is 10 days long, and it's at the beginning of each semester. Um, the schedule is an intense one because we're together all day from like 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and sometimes later. Um, if there are events like a dinner or a film screening, or in the first residency in the fall semester, there was the spoiler event where there were storytellers on the stage at JTSA, and we were attending that event as well as meeting those storytellers. So I was thinking about what exactly are the things that I want you guys to know about the residency. And so I'm a person, I have a master's degree. Oh, I forgot to mention, I'm working on a memoir. It's about my childhood growing up in an eccentric American Jewish family on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. And when I applied to the program, I submitted the first two chapters of that memoir. Um, Supplementally, I'm an actor and a director, and so I submitted a devised theater piece that I had collaborated with two other people in writing, as well as a short nonfiction essay that I had published. Anyway, um, what I really want you guys to know about the residency is um, there are a number of things that happen during the residency. One is that's when everyone submits work to be workshopped. We've all read that work. All the other writers in the same cohort have read each other's work beforehand. And one of the mentors, will workshop um, two people's work in the morning, and maybe on some days two people in the evening or one person in the afternoon. Um, so that's one of the things that's happening. Then there are presenters who are coming. The first residency, when I went there, it was surreal. I felt like I was walking around in a dream because, for one thing, I was hanging out for a week with Edgar Keret, whose work I admired so much that I was like, is this really happening? But it's not just it's and Edgar's vision is so special, and he and Dean Springer are so committed to this program and to making this the best that it can be and to serve the students in the way that it can serve them the best, that they've really put together you know, people to come, and all of whom are kind of like rock stars in their niche of storytelling. So that's just been such a delight. As a person who, did a traditional MA program where I went and I took courses and I wrote a thesis and blah, 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 and I went to class every week, what I would say is different about this experience is that when somebody is coming to present to us and to talk to us, whether that's a novelist or a journalist or an editor or a poet or a translator or someone whose specialty is historical fiction, I think that they're thinking to themselves, what is the essential thing that I want to impart? So in a traditional situation, the first day of class might be, what is historical fiction? What do you think it is? Here's what I think it is. Blah, blah, blah. Right here, people are really finding what is the essential nugget of the thing that I want you to understand about this thing that I do and that I do really well. So that's one wonderful thing about this intense 10-day residency at the beginning of each semester. Another thing is, I think that it's a situation that causes people to bring their best self to it, which is something that you can sustain for an intense 10 days, right? Um, and and you have to arrange your life that you're there for that, which means that once you've done that, it's sort of like a retreat that's just dedicated for those 10 days to your craft. And that's such a luxury and such a wonderful opportunity. Um, so I will stop babbling and happy to answer any questions anybody has later.
Thank you. Not at all babbling. Thank you so much, Eric. That was really insightful. And now we have Sam, who will talk about the power of the residency.
Hi everyone. So I'm Sam Max. I live in New York City, also near JTS up in Harlem. I work as a journalist, and I'm in this program because I wanted to write something very personal about kind of my family history, and for a while had been conceptualizing it as nonfiction, and then in the last probably 6 months or so decided that I wanted to make the jump into fiction. Um, and so yeah, I'm learning how to write a novel, and that's been super exciting. The work that I submitted when I applied was some journalistic works that I have done, including the first and at this point only story really that I have written about the Jewish community because I mostly covered things very far away from the Jewish community. And then also a personal piece that I had done in audio. So I work in audio journalism and an audio obituary that I made for my grandmother when she passed last year. Um, and I just kind of was feeling this feeling of needing to tell more personal stories and be more open to different mediums and different ways of kind of seeking the truth, which is something that we talk a lot about in the program. So I'm talking about the power of the cohort, which has been truly one of the greatest gifts of being in this program. I just have so quickly gotten this amazing community of writers who I feel like are becoming really wonderful friends. And it kind of manifests in different ways. I mean, first of all, it's a space to get feedback. As Eric was mentioning, at every residency, we workshop everyone's pieces. So sometimes that's just people giving their feedback in the moment. Some people will send you notes to kind of really follow up and dig in deeper on your writing. But also, we all kind of turn to each other during the semester for support. In the fall, one of my classmates had written a manuscript that we had been chatting about during the residency, and I was like, "Oh, that sounds interesting. I would love to read it." And she was like, "Well, actually, if you're interested, that would be amazing." And I read her manuscript, and it was such a cool experience for me to get to see a more extended piece of her work and just have conversations about what was working, how I felt like I could grow even more. We also have a very active WhatsApp where we're constantly sharing poems that we've written, our observations of things we're seeing on the subway or as we're, out in the world. Encouraging people to publish. And then if someone has an essay or a poem published or a short story, sharing that and reading and giving feedback. So that's been just really wonderful having a space to kind of bounce ideas off of one another. Also, a thing about a low residency program is that we're all scattered. We're not coming to class every day, as Eric mentioned. So being able to have those relationships really solidified at the residencies so that then in between we can be in touch. And I know I have a few folks that when deadlines are coming up, because every month we have to turn in our pages, someone will be texting me saying, "Hi, how are you doing? You got to make the deadline," and kind of giving each other words of encouragement, which is really nice. And then also, there are some cohorts of us that are concentrated in different cities. There's a handful of us in New York City, so I know Yael and I are going to get together this weekend to write in a coffee shop and hoping to do that more often. Um, Another really amazing thing about the program is that it's such a wide breadth of life experience. The youngest person in our program just graduated from college last year. The oldest person in our program is in their 70s. We have two rabbis. We have just, people who have been working as professional writers, people who are working in completely unrelated day jobs who just write, in any spare time they can find. So it's really been amazing seeing how differently everyone approaches writing because of their own life experience. And also just as human beings, getting to know so many amazing people. I'm not exaggerating when I say, like, I just feel like everyone in the program is super kind. Um, it's just such a welcoming space where, you know, during residency, there might be a lunch break. Everyone's inviting each other to go for a walk or to go sit together. It's just a very cozy, loving environment, which is really so special and not something to be taken for granted in an MFA program. And then I guess the last thing I'll say is just that it's a really safe space for feedback. Um, we had one contentious workshop out of, I would say, over 30 between the two residencies, and even the very contentious one came to a good, peaceful place in the end. But it's just really like a space where I think we all have kind of established this baseline of trust that when people are giving you feedback, it's really coming from a good place and being able to talk about the craft and what's working and what's not working, and feel like we're all just kind of rooting each other on. So that's like a really amazing feeling when, we're all being very vulnerable, putting ourselves on the page. So it's nice to feel like there's this very supportive community that will give you criticism, but in a way that feels really helpful.
I just would like to jump in for a minute, Carly, if that's okay. I just want to say it was just amazing, Alberta and Yael, Eric, and Sam. Thank you so much. And hearing you talk, it just like really makes me so happy. This program makes me so happy. And specific things like when you're saying, Sam, that everyone's so kind. Like, when Edgar and I started to plan it, we were like, we want to create a kind community. We want all the faculty to be really invested. We want everyone to be nice. And just kind of a miracle that that happened. But it was also intentional. I guess I want to say that all these various things are, were our desire. And then that it happened is really, really, you know, makes me very happy. And I thank you for making that happen, all of you.
Lisa, thank you. And thank you, everyone, for sharing all of your insights about your experiences so far in the program. It makes me happy too. It's a really beautiful, exciting, kind community. Um, I wanted to quickly share a little bit about how the application process goes, because I know that can feel a little bit daunting when applying to anything. Um, so I'm just going to share my screen. Sorry, one second. Okay. I think we have a question too in the chat related to application materials. Um, okay, so can everybody see my screen? Cool. So this is our website, Creative Writing Program at JTS. And so what you'll do is you'll first want to create an account with us, like a login, and you can create an account, and that's something you'll need to do in order to submit. I just wanted to show you that part first. Um, so for the application, it's all done online. Our deadline is March 1st. Um, And you'll need sort of just kind of like the basic things like transcripts from all of your post-secondary studies. If you're currently in a degree program, you can have an unofficial transcript, and if there's a challenge getting your transcripts, your official transcripts, you can still do the unofficial ones. But if you're admitted, you'll need the official ones at that point. Um, a resume, just like a brief professional resume or CV, if you have one, two letters of recommendation, and I'll talk in a minute about like specifically what the letters of recommendation, like who can be a recommender. Um, but the main like what we look at in the application is the personal statement and your creative portfolio. That's like your writing sample. Um, and your statement about why you would like to pursue an MFA are the two most substantial pieces of your application. So I'll talk about those, and then I'll circle back to the recommendations. And if Yael or Sam or Eric or Alberta want to provide any insight, since you've just been through that process of writing a personal statement and a creative portfolio, that might help some people in the audience. So Basically, for your personal statement, the advice is to just try to be yourself as much as possible, right? Describe yourself as a storyteller. Like all these questions are here that obviously, you can read on your own, but I'll just reiterate a few that like, what motivates you as a writer or what motivates you as a human being to tell a story. Um, and how do you hope to grow as a writer and as a person in the program? What you feel like you would bring to the program and what you feel like a program would bring to you. It's all about reciprocity in that respect. Um, and if you work across genres and mediums, because like Gal was touching on, and a few others were touching on, we have a very broad, expansive, experimental, and evolving belief about what a story can be and what it can look like. So you don't need to feel that you need to put a label on yourself, like I'm a poet or I'm a screenwriter, I'm a novelist, and that's all I do. You can write in across many mediums and genres. So please, you're encouraged to discuss that in your personal statement as well. Um, and then for the portfolio, so you want to pick what you feel is your strongest work. You can like ask a person that you trust maybe to go over it if you need just like a second pair of eyes on your work. Um, just think through what you feel represents you as a writer, as a storyteller at the time of your application is something to think about. We have like the sort of the page limit information here. 15 to 25 pages of prose, 8 to 12 pieces of poetry, and so forth. You can check that out independently for the page counts. But at the same time, if you have like a blended writing sample, like meaning like you write poems and stories, or you write screenplay, or you made a short film, you're more than welcome to submit additional writing samples that highlight your interests and what you feel like you'd be interested in working on in the program. And of course, what you work on in the program can change and evolve as you go through the process of the MFA. Um, and just back to the recommendation part. So some people might have like professors or something like that, like people like that in your life that know your writing or know your art. And those people are great as recommenders, but you may have a colleague that knows you like as a professional working in a group environment or as a team and can speak to sort of how you are with others. Those people in your life would be great as recommenders. So it can be people who know you well, people who have seen your art or know how you feel about your writing or your stories. People that you work with are all people that you can ask to write letters of recommendation for you. So it doesn't have to just be people from where you went to college, or it's not limited to that. And if you have any questions about if you're unsure of like some a person that you would like to recommend you and you're not sure if that would be appropriate, you can always ask us, and we're happy to answer those questions for you. So it's pretty straightforward. Application process. And we're always welcome to any questions that you have about the application. And now, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. But if things come up later, you can email us here. I'll drop this email in the chat and also the website link in the chat. And we can answer any future questions. I'm going to unshare my screen. All right. And one of the first questions that we had actually is for Lisa, if you don't mind answering this one. Somebody asked a question about where we see the MFA program going in 5 years. If you could speak to that.
Sure. So, it's been just a year, as I said, that since Edgar joined, which is a really short time and so much has happened. So I don't want to predict too much. Our storytelling festival is called Spoiler. We are all about surprises and things evolve rapidly with someone as creative and imaginative as Edgar. But I will say that we've learned some things with this first cohort. We've learned how important it is to have an intimate, small group We were originally planning to admit another cohort in January, but I think all of you would agree that it's really good that we did not have another 18 students. So we really have decided that I think excellence and intimacy are the two key words for what we want to create. And so we will be admitting a cohort this fall, but we will not be admitting a cohort next January. So the fall is the only point of admission in this coming year. And I anticipate that if I think 5 years down the road, that's what we will have wanted to continue to have. Having this kind, generous, adventurous community of writers who support each other and who take risks, and is really what's most important. We also have launched some other things like the Spoiler Festival. I imagine that we will continue to have things that branch off. Will we create a podcast? Will we create other storytelling venues? I imagine that we will. These things come up and we discuss them and we apply for grants and we might have donors who want to see us do specific things. So all of that is TBD, but I would say that in 5 years, my hope is that we maintain the sort of small size of the program, that we have a community of people who've graduated and continue to support each other and do work together and have their work published and out there in the world, and that we have these other things that branch off from the main thing that we do.
Great. We did have some clarifying questions about the structure, so I'll add to it, and then like if people want to jump in. So the residencies are 10 days and they're twice a year. The program itself is 2 years long. Um, and I'll speak on like sort of the administrative side about how mentors and students are paired. And then I think if Sam or Yael, anybody, any of the current students want to share like their side, what it's like for you, that might be helpful to folks. So there's a conversation that happens between like the MFA team and each student, and we personalize a plan, like thinking about who would be a great fit for your work and where you're going in your writing and what your projects and dreams and hopes are. It's we have that beautiful discussion, and then that happens the last day of residency or like towards the end of the 10-day in-person residency part. And then for the semester, you work with that individual mentor and you submit work 3 times, and you also, on both sides, submit reflections about the experience at the beginning and at the end. And it's a back and forth of feedback and sometimes reading lists, writing prompts. It depends on you and your mentor. And maybe Alberta, if you wanted to, since you spoke to the topic of mentorship, if you might want to just revise anything I'm saying.
Yeah, when I came to the program, I really didn't have a definite idea about who I wanted to work with. And so for me, there was kind of an implicit shopping around during the residency because you do get exposed to faculty and you see how they work and how they workshop other members of your cohort. So you maybe begin to have a list of people that, you'd be excited to work with. Um, I mean, I did Google everyone for sure because there were many people. I mean, they're clearly very famous people that most people know, and it's often a draw to that brings them to the program. But for some of the people, it's just been a process of discovery.
I want to just add, because it was something that people were not sure about, is sometimes people want to continue with the same mentor, and sometimes people want to change. So you could work with one mentor 2, 3, 4 semesters, or with one mentor for two, and a few people, I think about half of the students changed to a new mentor, and half the students stayed with the same one for the second semester, and some want to go to another mentor and then go back to their original mentor. So it's really very, again, individualized.
Great. We hope that answers your question. And if anyone in the audience would like clarification on that, feel free to ask us. Um, I have a question that Aiden, I think would be good for you to answer just about the labels, like when the students are submitting or prospective students are submitting their portfolio, the creative portfolio, if there's like a certain labels to put on the application, sort of that technical question.
Yeah, so it's definitely a very common question to get asked because when we're running a program that's really accepting of all different genres of storytelling, it's hard to know how to format something. Typically, what we have and what I would suggest is that if you want to provide in your additional materials section, like another short Word document or just description of the context of what you're submitting to help orient our team to what we'll be reviewing, that's totally acceptable. So if you have something of a format that you want to make sure we really get it and can view the vision that you'd like us to see, feel free to just add a little more description. And just generally, if you have specific questions about your materials, you're welcome to at any time reach out to mfainfo@jtsa.edu, and we'll respond to you and you alone and make sure you're submitting it in the right way that's good for you and good for us.
Great. Yeah, so anything specific that Aiden just pointed out, like in terms of recommenders or like your specific application, you can totally send us a note and we can get back to you. Um, I I wanted to see if maybe Alberta or Samantha or Eric would maybe offer a piece of advice that maybe to the audience just about the application process, whether it's in regard to the personal statement or the writing sample. Maybe we start with Eric.
Um, I guess, uh, whoops. Uh, my advice is just, I mean, in my personal statement, I shared stuff that I thought people who don't know me, might think was weird, but I I did it anyway because it represented a part of me. So I think just sort of being yourself is the recommendation that I would make.
And on the reading end, I will say that I remember what Eric submitted about himself.
I'll second that because working in memoir, I shared very personal material, and the personal statement, I just treated it like I was telling a story. I was telling my story, and I just tried to bring the reader into my story as I would in writing a creative piece. Um, and then the other thing I was thinking about in terms of what you submit, I think now that I think about it, I did try to do a little bit of a variety. I think I submitted a flash piece. I also had an experience where something I wrote was read by an actor, and so I got a recording of that. So I tried to offer some variety and you know, genre kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I'll echo that and say like a thing about Edgar and about this program is that vulnerability is really at the center of it. We kind of our mission that we've been told to pursue is to find our voice and, write from our heart, like tell the story that we need to tell, even if we're not sure what it is yet, that our job is to get lost and find it. So I think, I was also very open and vulnerable in my essay and just talking about why I felt called to be in the program at this particular moment in my life. And I did have a project that I pitched and that I'm working on now, but also being upfront about all of the question marks around it, and the uncertainties and things that I wanted to figure out through the program. And then, yeah, I mean, as Alberta said, like in terms of the writing samples, I was like, is it weird to submit something so personal as, an audio obituary with my grandmother's voice? Maybe it is, but also like it's so deeply personal to me and really like the most personal and meaningful story that I've ever told. And I felt like for a program like this, I needed to share it. So I think just it is a little weird to send something into the void, not knowing who's going to read it. But obviously, you can see on the other end of it, it is Lisa and Aiden and Edgar. And so, yeah, I think as cheesy it sounds, just, being true to yourself.
This is,
Uh,
oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, Yael, if you have something to add.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I'll just double down on this theme of authenticity and truth that you really can't go wrong by being as honest as possible. This is what the program calls for. Um, and I would say, like, I think I probably felt I was guilty of maybe including some things in my personal statement where I was like, look how impressive I am. This is a little sidebar about this thing that I did, and you really don't have to do it. Um, it's like not the space for that. Like this is a space for you to just really show like the why you're doing this and again who you are as a storyteller. Um, and I think that my statement also did include quite a bit about like why being in a Jewish program specifically did mean so much to me, which is something we haven't really touched on tonight. But me as an Orthodox writer writing about Orthodox lives and like why it would mean so much to be in a space where there was just like, this shared understanding and language, even though like everyone in the program has such different relationships with Judaism and their Jewish identity. But that was something that was a pretty large part of my essay.
And I also remember that, Yael, specifically because is it okay if I share what you said?
Yeah, yeah.
So one thing that you said that I thought was really meaningful, because people say, what does it mean for it to be a Jewish program? And you were saying that, you know, having the practice that you have, you would be in a space where everyone's not always asking you about it. You're not the Orthodox Jew that everyone's like, oh, what does it mean?
Yeah.
And you could be somewhere where you could just be regular, which I thought was just, it was great.
So just imagine Lisa reading your essays, and it'll be so easy to write because Lisa's the best.
Speaking of Lisa reading essays, we have a question that if you could speak to somebody wanted to know about like experience level, like if you're a beginning writer, uh, is this a place for somebody who's just beginning?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So if you're a beginning writer, as in you have not written, this is not yet the place for you, right? So if you have a project and you think, I now want to be a writer, but you haven't yet, put pen to paper and you haven't tried, then you should spend some time trying. Everyone in the program has written and has written even a lot, many people. So, um, but if you have started to write and you feel like you have, you can't apply to the program without having writing to submit for us to read. So you can't write just with the idea. You have to have executed it to some extent. But if you feel like you have executed it to some extent, please go ahead and apply. And I would say if you apply and you are not admitted, you should feel free to work on your writing and reapply. We're open to people continuing on that journey.
Great, thank you. We had a question about publishing and exposure to publishers, and so I'll just share that in our recent residency, Shalom Auslander, one of our core faculty members, and Edgar Karet, our director, had a wonderful conversation session seminar with their publisher. They have a shared publisher at Riverhead is their shared publisher here in New York. So you will have exposure to those conversations and learning about the ways people publish and produce work for the public. At the same time, an MFA program. Well, one of the great things about this program is that it's so process based and experimental and just like a space to build community and get feedback on work and try new things. So that's a huge part of it too. And Lisa, if you wanted to add something to that.
Yeah, so absolutely, we want to expose people to possibilities of publishing and being ambitious with your work and trying different things. but we are not a program that is saying we're going to take you from here to you're going to work on your craft and then you're going to publish your book. We want that to be a possibility if that's what you are looking for, but we want to also think, what are different ways to tell your stories? Does it have to be a book? Can it be, just have a really wide, free, open view of what it means to be a storyteller and to be an artist and to be a writer?
Great. And we just have a few more minutes left. And there's a question about work-life balance that I think is really important. And if Sam and Alberta and Eric and Yael might share, what is that like? What is it, the experience like? Um, just working and then also going through the program if that's what your structure is. We'll start with Yael, just because.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I remember Edgar was saying in our first residency that this is like really what the life of a writer is like, where like you have to, just wrap the work into your daily life and into your daily workload. And you're not always going to have this time carved out. Um, so it's definitely, and I really felt that in the fall semester. We went from the residency to right into the holidays, and then, work and transitions and like all these things were going on. But I think that the timing is really doable. Like the way that the deadlines are set up, like you will have enough time to get things done. And everyone is very understanding. So if you do need like I needed some extra time with one thing and everyone was really accommodating with that. Um, and so it definitely will help you with the practice of being a writer in terms of like doing your own work to build it in. But I will say that there is something about the residency that it is like it does like just like supercharge you up. Like you do leave and you feel like so driven, so excited, so amped that like I think if the residency didn't exist, if it was just a mentorship, it would be so much harder. But because you have that base and that you keep returning to and thinking about, and the cohort chat that is like always going, and the people to turn to, um, it makes it all the more doable. Um, and people make it work, and it's the life of a writer.
Sam, did you want to chime in? And then Eric and then Alberta.
Sure. I mean, I had a little bit of an unconventional experience, but I'll share it in case it's helpful. I actually felt so inspired by the fall residency that I contemplated quitting my job. Um, I, I know we're not doing spoilers, but spoiler alert, I didn't quit my job. I did take a leave for a couple of months in the fall. So after the semester, or after the fall residency, I worked for a couple months and then so I was doing my writing kind of, you know, at night, on the weekends, things like that. I did take a leave for a couple of months to think about what I wanted to do with my life. And also just really like spent the time trying to like get a head start of feeling fully submerged in the program. So I wrote more than was required of me. I read a book a week. I was like, I'm going to take this opportunity to really think about how I want to use these next couple of years. And now I'm back at work and just, figuring out the balance of, I mean, I write all day for a living. So figuring out when's going to be the time that I want to write creatively, um, making sure that I'm trying to use my subway commutes to be doing my reading assignments, just trying to be creative. So, we're still very early on in this, and I'm still figuring it out for myself. Yeah.
I was slow to respond because I'm semi-retired, so I work part-time, which does fit in nicely. But even with that being said, it feels like a very full life. And I'm able to do my day job in the afternoons, so that frees up morning for writing and reading. So that works out. Yeah, but it's a full life, but it's a very enriching life.
I just wanted to add that because this is a low residency program, it gives you a lot of latitude to try to find that balance between work, family, and your craft. And if you're able to arrange it, that you can have a 10-day residency. That is, as others said, something that's really supercharging and that carries you through, um, whether you're writing at night or whatever time that you can grab to do it.
All right, thank you so much. I think that's time. And it's great everyone for being here. And if you have any questions or you know, 3 days from now, you wake up in the middle of the night with a burning question about the application, Aiden has dropped the link in the chat to our website and to our email for inquiries. And our deadline is March 1st. So we hope to read your applications. And Lisa, if you wanted to add anything, or Aiden.
I just wanted to thank Yael, Sam, Alberta, and Eric for, you know, I can say whatever about the program, but it's really the people who are experiencing it who can speak much more eloquently about it. So we really appreciate you coming. And last year when we did this session, there were no students, so we didn't have any voices, any testimonials at that point. So I want to thank you.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.